2023, and I'm really hoping this is going to be an annual event. What a stellar lineup of speakers we have today, and I am honored to be invited to host a session, Where to Begin with Workflow Management. The hardest part, start. You're in the start track. And if you are new to workflow, start sessions are for you. Join workshops, panel discussions, and breakout sessions that handhold you through how to get started, clear the myths around workflow management, and answer your questions. So the hardest part of going for a run is putting on your shoes. We very often get stuck on getting started. So today, the first thing on our agenda is a talk around getting started. Then we're going to talk about what the elements of a workflow are. We are going to discuss AI, automations, and workflows. And then we're going to talk about the importance to always be iterating. So I'm Kellie Parks, Calmwaters Cloud Accounting, and I want every accounting professional to love running a cloud-based business as much as I do. I am a proud member of the Intuit Trainer Writer Network. I am a Xero partner. I am an alumni member of the FreshBooks Council, and I am the current leader bean of the Financial Sense Ambassador Program. So the most important thing on getting started, is beginning with the end in mind. What is it that you are trying to do? What is the outcome you are looking for in your workflow? So let's take a bookkeeping workflow, for example. My overriding outcome for my client books is that they are within a few weeks ready if somebody decides that they want to sell the business. This is the overall outcome of my business, or the mission statement, whatever you want to call it. I want my clients to be ready almost in the moment to either sell their business, apply for financing, telling me they're going to do so, of course. I want them to confidently be able to say, if they get a call from an auditor, that we are ready to go. And part of that leads to what my bookkeeping workflow outcome is. So my monthly close bookkeeping workflow, the desired outcome is that I can close the books accurately within 10 days of the month so that my clients have cash flow reports and the other reports they need to confidently run their business. Define why you need the workflow. Pick and choose which ones you need the most. And so helping you with that will be defining why you need the workflow. One of the main reasons I want workflows is so that the books are closed accurately by someone other than me. And then that leads back to the outcome. So these are the two places to get started on your workflow journey. Oh, I hate the word journey. I don't know why I use it. I'm not crazy on it, but anyways, away we go. So what is the workflow implementation matrix? You have to decide which ones should you build right now, which ones can sit on the back burner, which ones are more important, less important, and sometimes we just want to build them all, but that's not really how it works. Is that we only have so much bandwidth to build the workflows, so we need to get the most important ones out the door first. So what we want is it easy to implement? Do you have workflows that you can just get moving in? Are they going to be difficult to implement? Some of them may have a lot required to build them out. Maybe there's a lot of stakeholders, maybe there's a lot of communications, maybe there's a lot of best practices to be put into the workflow. So those are going to be more difficult to implement. Is it going to be a big win for you? Is building a workflow going to solve a really imperative problem for you or for your clients or for your team members? Or is it just going to be a tiny little win? Maybe it's a fun one to build, but it's not going to be much of a win for you. That's probably not one you want to start with unless you're just trying to get your feet wet. And that one's going to be fun to build, but a small win for you. Not one that I would build to begin with. So really what you want to look for is the easily to implement and the big win. And so one of those ones for me an important one that I built may not seem like an important one to everybody. And that is, I built a workflow to make sure that my GL, my reconciliation ending balance, and my balance sheet and the bank statements or PayPal statements, whatever they were, we're all matching. So I do the GL reconciliation quarterly. There's quite a few steps to it, but they're easy steps. There's no best practices necessarily. Build some custom reports. Here's the list. Open up these reports, take a look at it, do those balance out. So it's not complicated, but two things. We don't do it very often, so we forget. And also it is critical that it gets done, and leaving it till the year end is not good practice. So it's not done often, so we can forget how to do it. There's not a whole lot of best practices to it. You can have the custom reports ready to go, but where it gets tricky is if the ending balances don't match. So if your GL is out for some reason, this then has a whole series of steps that you can go through to trace back to what is the possible problem with this GL reconciliation. So that one was a big win and actually fairly easy to implement. And I implemented it in a couple of milestones. And one of those milestones you can just get rid of right away. If the whole dang thing matches, you don't even need to go into the second series of tasks. So think about what the importance of it is going to be. The next thing you need to do is just get building. So you've decided what the outcome of the workflow is. What's the end run? What's the reason that you're building it? And then you want to build backwards. So you're probably going to start with close the books. The one thing you want to do is make sure that you close the books. So start with that last thing in mind, because you don't want anybody opening up the books and monkeying about in a past phase. So think about, again, what is important? What are the outcomes you're trying to achieve? So one of them may be not monkeying about in the past periods. You could put that right in your workflow as an outcome, use monkeying about. So, but then you've got to get on with building them. So sometimes we want to complicate the building of them. But really what we should do is just get started with the milestones. What are the big top level tasks that need to be done? Peck those out. That is the very first place to start. And whether you are doing it in a spreadsheet, some of us like to build in a spreadsheet, or whether you are doing it in Financial Sense itself, just get started with the milestones. This is where AI that's built right into Financial Sense can really come in handy, because you can actually put into Financial Sense in the AI section, and remember, treat it like it's an intern that just started working for you. So give it as much information as you have. So I want to build a workflow to monthly end close using the applications Dext, QuickBooks Online, and Pluto. And monthly close for, I don't know, a construction client or professional services. Give it as much information as you can, and it will generate the beginning phases of that workflow for you. What it is not going to do, though, is probably put in some of the deeper elements of the workflow. But getting started, as I mentioned, can be the hardest part. So get started with the milestones. The AI in Financial Sense will help you with those milestones. It will get you unstuck, if you will, and then you can start adding to it as you move along. So then you're going to want to add all of the different details in it, all of the different elements of a workflow. So what are the elements of a workflow? Obviously, there's the task list. There's the subtasks. There are the, when I talk about a lot of these are going to include the client task list as well. For example, we want to ship out a task list for our clients. We want to make sure that they know what some of the best practices are. There's areas to put descriptions in Financial Sense under the tasks that we are giving to our clients. And then we can give them custom uploads to get them to put things where we want them to. Then there are the subtasks. Those are going to be the niggly details. And we're going to take a look at some of those in a minute live in Financial Sense. So task list, subtasks, Best practices, you could call those descriptions if you want. I call them best practices. You're going to want to add some dependencies so somebody doesn't get too deep into part of their task list and subtasks and realize that the stuff ahead of it hasn't been done and they need it in order to finish this project. The communications are a key element of a workflow. Time tracking can be a key element of a workflow. Even if you are not billing by the hour, time tracking does help you budget for capacity or plan for capacity, and you can use it as KPIs against how long you budgeted for a project to take versus how long the project itself actually did take. And then I like to use tags as well, and we have the option of all kinds of tag work in Financial Sense. So tags are another element of a workflow or project that you're building out. Okay, so let's take a look at what that looks, the elements of a workflow when they are built out in Financial Sense. So we have the main task, and then we have the subtasks, and then you could add a task automation. We're going to talk about the task automations later, and Financial Sense has an absolute ton of them. So you've got the subtasks, and let's find one that has a description. This tells us that there is a description. So we've got publishing the receipts, and then what is the best practice on that one? So that would be your subtasks. We're going to go into clearing the bank feeds. Again, here are your best practices in the description area, and there are some of the subtasks that need to be done. And then let's take a look at email the client books when they're closed. So this one has a dependency, and the dependency is that the books are closed. Let's just take a look. So the period is closed, and then when that is done, we can send, and I just picked any. This is a test file, so I just picked anything. So then we can actually send an email. We can then preview the email, and so that email is going to go out to the client, and as soon as we hit the go button or complete this task. So this is what it looks like live and in action. We've got a couple of tags on it. Oh, my tags didn't show up again because it's a test client, but we could put waiting for client in here. So this really showcases all of the, I think I have one that's got time tracking. No, I've got a due date on one. Let's just take a look at on here. So the budgeted time should be, I don't know, 20 minutes, let's just say. So I put 20 hours. Let's just put 20 minutes instead, shall we? So 12 minutes. I'm doing a lousy job of it, but you get the idea. You can add the assignees, and then we've got the client tasks. So we want them to upload their bank and credit card statements. We want their bills and sales created outside of QBO sent over to Dex. We want everything going to one place. And then if there is something specific that month, we can actually add a couple of things into the client chat. So this is what a built out workflow looks like. And in a little while, I'm going to come back and I'm going to demo some of the automation and customization that you can do for your Financial Sense workflows. So one of the other things that has to come into play when you're building your workflows, we've defined the outcomes. We've got the milestones set up, but how do you decide how many workflows to build? And one of the ways that I do it is I go by the cadence of work, meaning what is the type of work that's going to be done? How many people will be involved in the work? So some of them may be that you have a high level of complication. So I do some pay, or maybe it's outlier work. Maybe it's work that doesn't come up very often, but you need to deploy it properly and then bill for it properly. So I do international payments for a couple of my clients. Those international payments, the bills are coming in from a European vendor. They are coming into in US dollars. They need to be paid out of the program that we use, Pluto, and then they are going to hit the Canadian bank account for my clients converted to Canadian. There's a lot of steps there. There's a couple of communications. So the minute, and we don't know when these are going to happen. So they are out of the scope of work. That's another good one to build workflows for. But what we do is as soon as we see one of these bills come into Dext, we then initiate the workflow in Financial Sense that takes us through the steps because there are niggly details. We have to do currency conversions. We have to make sure that, anyways, there's probably 5 milestones in these payments, and then there's a ton of niggly details in there. So, and then we got to make sure, we have to make sure that we bill the client for that out of scope work. So we can attach it to a service item and then off it goes, and then it can be invoiced to the client without forgetting. And so that is a specific workflow. It would not be part of a monthly close that perhaps has accounts payable. Accounts payable in monthly workflow is going to look more like you are reviewing accounts payable and making sure that it is reconciled, that there aren't old payments, that there aren't unusual payments, there aren't expenses that are still showing up as bills. That can go into a monthly workflow. But if you are actually doing payables and it's on a schedule that is either different from the monthly workflow, different from the weekly workflow, or complicated, you're going to want to have a workflow all on its own. Payroll is likely a standalone workflow. It is often bi-weekly. There's all kinds of complications if there's hourly staff. And then you need to make sure that that is done correctly. So that would probably be, payroll is very often its own workflow. The other thing is, let's say there is one that has a lot of client details to it. You need a lot of information from the client. That might be AR. You may want that as its own because you don't want a project left open for all of eternity because there's a few tasks that the client has not completed. So if you're finding that that's the case, you might want to create a workflow just to get the client to finish things outside of maybe that monthly close workflow where you need the bank statements and make sure their sales are done. If you have outlier team members, so I actually am not in my client books very often. I want my manager file review to not be part of the monthly close. I want Marissa to be able to close the books, and then I initiate well, it's recurring, custom recurring automatically. I then go in and I know that I can do the file review before that final letter goes out to the client, the automated email, which is now part of a workflow in Financial Sense. I need that to be my workflow. I want that to be separate. You need to decide what all of that team member and assigning people looks like. Onboarding is a really good example because you're going to want the discovery workflow. Then you're going to want a file review workflow, and then you're going to want an information gathering workflow before you even get to the engagement. Because if the client doesn't get through those first couple of stages, you don't need to, end a workflow without closing everything out. I would build those. Onboarding is a really good one where I would build them out because there's milestones within each of those, the discovery phase, the file review phase, and then there's enough subtasks in there. It would get onerous if you had one onboarding workflow. And so consider your cadence of work. And then some of those considerations, weekly bookkeeping for us. So we do our clients' books weekly. So we have weekly workflows for them, monthly level of complication and outlier team members. Oh yeah, we have to have a gratuitous dog photo, right? So some of you have seen my dogs either in meetings or in some of my slide decks. So the one on the left is Sharky. She is an absolute sweetheart. And the one on the right, that's Tippet. And she is my enthusiastic dog. I guess it's our dog. Mostly she's my husband's dog. Okay, so AI and automation in your workflow. So I already mentioned the biggest benefit of AI in your workflow is getting you unstuck on starting your workflows, starting your communications, replies to emails. There's all kinds of ways to use AI. And when we are using AI outside of an application like Financial Sense, AI really just tells us things. And then we need AI agents to deploy the actions to do things for us. In Financial Sense, the agents are built in. So that's the automation. So we've got the artificial intelligence built in that is telling us stuff. And then we've got the automation that when you ask it to do something, it does it right in the program. And so that is the beauty of having AI and automation built right into your workflows. So there is always an automation decision matrix, of course. So can you delegate? This is when I decide that automation is a really big win for me. Can you delegate your automation that you want to someone without the concern for the outcome? Are you that confident in your process or communications? Is it a repeatable process? Is it the same outcome and process every single time? You could probably automate it, but make sure you have systematized it first. And test the bejeebers out of every automation on yourself and maybe on a forgiving guinea pig client. So does the automation benefit outweigh the consequences of an automation fail? So I have automated emails. They are now part of the task list in Financial Sense. I before had to basically go and deploy. They were templated, but I had to deploy a month-end close email to a client. Now it is built in, and the automation benefit far outweighs the consequences of a fail here because it is built into the workflow for a client. It's not that the wrong email is going to go with sensitive information to the wrong person. So that would be an automation fail. But in this case, the automation is strong and the benefits outweigh the consequences of an automation fail. So will fixing it be embarrassing, time consuming, or will it be sharing sensitive data? That is where your automation decision matrix comes in. And so the email deployment is a great one. The other one are the client reminders for the things that they do every month. If they are outlier tasks, you can have them not recur with the project for your clients, but you can send out, so, you know, at the very beginning of the month, the reminder goes out automatically and reminds them for a few days, every couple of days, to get those bank statements into us. That is a complete automation win. It's an automation win for your client as well, because we all do the same thing. We're like, oh yeah, I saw that come in, then didn't do anything with it. If somebody pokes me to remind me of stuff, I actually appreciate it. So that's a total automation win. So FC automation, we have client reminders, yay! We have tags, we have email deployment, we have recurring projects, and I want to take a look at that in a minute. We have close projects. So if you tap off the task list, you can have the project itself close without having to manually do all of them. And then how about the confetti when you do close a project, that the confetti gives you that little dopamine hit? That one is super. So here's a little bit of the automation that I want to show you in here. This is automating sending the emails. So you actually create a task. So create a task and then you go in. It will ask you what task automations you want to add. And so you can do a couple of things now. There are going to be, so we do use tag automators and now we are using send to client. And so that is, like I said, an absolute huge win. The client tasks, being able to manage the notifications so that they are going out, and I want them to be every 3 days, and then I want to send a one-time notification. Who do I want it to come to? And then when was it last sent? You can see what the notification is going to look like so that you have a view of what they're going to see. And then over here, this is the recurring. So I'm going to show you making it recurring. I absolutely love this. So make sure you put in the accounting period if you want the accounting period that you're working in to show up here. So I want to know that on October 10th, it was the September 23 books that we're working in. That's how my brain works. I want the start date. I want it to be recurring. I want it to be custom. So let's take a look at what that looks like. On the first Monday of every month. I want it to recur whatever amount of days you want based on the project's due date. So you can apply those, and this is a fantastic automation because I don't want to be continuing to start workflows manually. The only ones I want to start are those out of scope work that we do for the client. So take a look in there. The automation is an absolutely huge part of getting started in your workflow once you have systematized it properly, and you're going to have automation wins, not automation woes. Of course, I'm back with one final. I just wanted to show you live the two automations that I love. First of all, if you click off all of the tasks, which I don't generally love, to be honest, I like people to go through and do them piece by piece, but sometimes we simply don't. We can click off the tasks. It's going to mark the project as closed, and then boom, we get our little dopamine hit of confetti. So that's just a fun little demo of what is happening with the automation. And never underestimate fun in your workflows and in your project management, in all of your apps. So I'm getting way off topic because I'm supposed to be talking about getting started in workflow, but I always like to make sure that people don't negate the fact that fun will make it more engaging and will make it just a much pleasanter, a much better experience for everybody. I know I'm talking about getting started, but I think this speaks to the topic a little bit, and that is always be iterating. Your workflows are fluid. There's always change going on in your client's business, in your business, team members, maybe you're adding, subtracting services. There's always a better way of doing things. Tech improvements, changes to the technology, all of these things, make sure that you're iterating. Don't get stuck in the same old, same old. And one of the nice things in Financial Sense is if you've got recurring tasks and you set them up, but then you realize you're either going to add something to the scope of work for a client, or you've got a way better way of doing something now, you can add that task in, and then you can decide if it recurs or is it just a one-off, because sometimes we are just doing those one-off things for our clients. So you have the option to make your iterations recur seamlessly with your recurring work or not. So always be iterating. In summary, please stop overthinking. Just do a loose definition of why you want the workflow and what you want the outcome to be, and then start packing it out with AI, without AI. Start with those milestones, and then worry afterwards about adding all of the extra elements. You can't do everything all at once. It's counterproductive. So go back and add in those other elements later. Build them by your cadence of work. Leverage Financial Sense, AI, and automation, and always be iterating. Thank you for coming today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of Workflow Con. I appreciate your time, and I wish you well in building out your killer workflows.